Can't lose, you know it's alright. It's okay. Live to see. Hi. Hi, folks. This is Barry Gibb talking to you from our home and hopefully straight to your home. And can't lose, you know it's alright. It's okay. Live to see.
Barry Gibb, owner of 220 million albums sold and a personal fortune of 140 million US dollars, has always appeared as the embodiment of success. Behind the spotlight, though, lies a series of personal tragedies and unseen shadows that have never been revealed. I just remember pulling a pan of boiling water over me by accident, of course, but I had about 20 minutes to live. Steve Gibb, his eldest son, is now the one to directly expose long-hidden secrets. Shocking truths will be confirmed for the first time in this very story. My dad is a family man in the truest sense of the word. Since the 1950s, Barry Gibb had already established his legendary status when he and his brothers formed the Rattlesnakes in Manchester, marking the beginning of one of the greatest musical journeys of the century. After the family moved to Australia, Barry and his brothers continued to lay the foundation for the Bee Gees, the group that would define the entire disco era and leave an unmistakable mark on the global music scene. In 1963, the Bee Gees released their first single and quickly signed with Festival Record. The real turning point came in 1967 when the group returned to England, signed with Robert Stigwood, and released the album Bee Gees First, featuring a string of hits such as I Love Somebody and Massachusetts, putting Barry Gibb's name on the international music map. By 1977, the Bee Gees exploded worldwide with the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, selling more than 50 million copies, and becoming the most successful movie soundtrack of all time, defining the disco craze. Barry Gibb also quickly demonstrated his remarkable songwriting talent with a series of chart-topping tracks in both the US and UK, ranking just behind Paul McCartney in the number of number one songs with his signature falsetto. Barry affirmed it came to me in a dream. Arif Mardin asked us to try screaming in falsetto. From then on, it became our signature style. This very hallmark created the unmistakable identity of the Bee Gees on the international stage. Barry not only succeeded with the group, but also stepped into producing, making his mark with major projects such as Barbra Streisand's Guilty album in 1980, featuring the chart-topping Woman in Love, or producing Eyes That See in the Dark for Kenny Rogers with Islands in the Stream becoming a global hit. We got something. By 1994, Barry and his brothers were honored at the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and in 1997, they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Two milestones, affirming their place in modern music history. Barry Robin Morski, the BG. From 2000 to 2024, Barry continued to receive prestigious awards such as the CBE in 2002, Knighthood in 2018, Kennedy Center Honors in 2023, and became executive producer for the Bee Gees biopic in 2024. His solo album, In the Now, 2016, reached number 2 in the UK, while Greenfields, 2021, topped the charts in both the UK and Australia, demonstrating Barry's ability to innovate and adapt over decades. As for assets, by 2024, Barry's personal fortune had reached 140 million US dollars, mostly coming from the rights to over 20 number one US/UK hits, studio earnings, and production collaborations. The Bee Gees have also sold more than 220 million albums worldwide, making Barry one of the wealthiest and most influential songwriters on the planet. The Saturday Night Fever album alone has far surpassed all competitors in sales, becoming a timeless milestone for generations to come. International media have continuously praised Barry, calling him the chief architect of the Bee Gees sound. Washington Post, 2023, and a true pop icon, Smooth Radio, 2025. Beyond being an artist, Barry is a symbol of relentless effort, resilience in the face of a changing market, and timeless creativity. He has also declared, "I can't imagine being a successful pop star without my family's support." People, 1989. For Barry, family has always been the steadfast foundation and the driving force throughout his 6-decade journey at the top, one success after another. But beneath the spotlight are emotional scars known only to those within. When his career reached every pinnacle, Barry Gibb also began to face profound losses and lasting wounds. experiences that would leave a deep impact on both himself and the next generation. The shadows behind the spotlight. Barry's childhood was far from the peaceful image many people imagine. In 1948, he suffered a serious accident when he was badly burned by boiling water, leading to 2 years in the hospital and another 2 years before he could speak again. This experience shaped a part of his strong-willed personality and resilience, but it also left him with lasting emotional scars. In 1988, Andy Gibb, the youngest brother, once the youthful icon of the entire family, passed away at the age of 30 due to heart failure related to cocaine addiction. This loss was a huge shock for Barry and the whole family, serving as a harsh warning about the darker side of fame in the international music world. Barry once shared in an interview with People, "Andy was the soul of the family. I have never been able to get over this loss." In 2003, the death of Maurice Gibb from heart failure at age 53 plunged Barry into another period of prolonged psychological crisis. Less than a decade later, Robin Gibb, Barry's greatest songwriting partner, also died at 62 from cancer. All three brothers left this world one after another, leaving Barry Gibb as the last surviving Bee Gee, carrying not only the musical legacy, but also an irreplaceable burden of loss. This chain of losses pushed Barry into a period of severe depression that lasted many years. According to Our Mental Health, Barry once fell into alcoholism to cope with mental pressure. He shared, "I felt lonely and questioned my purpose after my brothers passed away. Why am I the only Bee Gee left?" Many times, Barry had to rely on the support of his wife, Linda, and psychological therapy to find balance again. According to the Irish Times, Barry's wife, Linda, has always been his greatest source of support, helping him overcome depression and restore stability to the family after countless upheavals. Thanks to Linda, the family has remained close. But the children, especially Steve, grew up with a sense of both pride and anxiety for their father and for their own future. International media have often analyzed that Barry's childhood accident and the string of losses that followed have shaped the way he approaches music, fame, and family values. CBS News has emphasized that these very experiences have created the emotional depth in Barry's work, while also pointing out a reality beneath the spotlight of every legend. There are always shadows unseen by the audience. As the spotlight begins to fade on stage, old wounds and family burdens become an invisible legacy, continuing to influence every decision and every step taken by the next generation. In the end, his son's journey stands as the clearest testament to the enduring weight of that generational darkness, expectations with no escape. Steve Gibb, born in 1973 in London, is not only the eldest son of Barry Gibb, but also someone who grew up between two opposing worlds. On one side, the monumental fame of the Bee Gees, and on the other, the lingering shadows of family tragedy. Steve spent most of his childhood in Miami, where the media constantly tracked every movement of Barry Gibb's family. From a young age, Steve appeared alongside his parents at major events, becoming a prince of music in the public eye. But behind this glamorous image, reality was entirely different. All eyes were on Steve as the heir, while Barry Gibb had become an international icon with an unprecedented legacy. This placed an enormous weight on Steve's shoulders, not only from his family, but also from society and music fans. From his school days, Steve had to learn how to appear flawless in public, always presenting a model image beside his father and siblings. He began learning piano at a very young age, but switched to guitar at 13, a choice heavily influenced by his idol Van Halen, rather than by the Bee Gees. In his early adulthood, Steve took a completely different direction. Instead of following the family's path of disco and pop, he pursued rock and heavy metal genres, demanding a rebellious, bold spirit. Steve once recalled performing for the first time at the Lear School in Miami in 1988, a moment when he dared to express his own identity and step out of the family's shadow, fully aware he would face skepticism and prejudice. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, Steve joined bands like 58, Black Label Society, Crowbar, Saigon Kick, all part of his effort to establish himself outside the Bee Gees' legacy. Steve didn't stop at music. He became Barry Gibb's guitar technician at 16, learning firsthand how the entertainment industry operates behind the scenes. These experiences gave Steve a deep understanding of hard work, but also highlighted how his every achievement was measured against his father's overwhelming legacy. American media, such as the Miami Herald, remarked that Steve is one of the rare artists who dare to choose a completely different path in a family with such a strong tradition, even at the risk of being misunderstood or labeled as someone living off his father's name. The pressure of inheritance and relentless expectations had a profound impact on Steve's psyche. He once shared, "I didn't have a normal childhood, just a shadow dressed up for the media." It was not just a feeling of being constantly watched, but also the loneliness of someone always forced to project a perfect image. Many times Steve tried to assert his own identity, but every effort was compared to his father or tied to the Bee Gees brand. Even though that was never his intention, the relationship between Steve and Barry Gibb has seen many ups and downs. There were times when Steve rebelled in an effort to assert himself, choosing a different lifestyle and throwing himself into his own projects. Even so, Barry always acknowledged his son's efforts. In 2013, during the Mythology Tour, Barry addressed thousands of fans, saying, "It's wonderful to look to my right and see my eldest son. He's outstanding." Encouragement became a powerful source of motivation for Steve, helping him find the confidence to continue his career. Even as the road ahead remained full of challenges, every choice Steve made was an attempt to escape Barry Gibb's shadow. But at the same time, it became a journey leading deeper into psychological struggles. As the rebellious years faded, Steve began to face the heavy consequences left behind by family expectations, generational pain, and a spotlight that could never truly fill the void. An unending tragedy. As the pressure living up to the family legacy grew heavier, Steve Gibb gradually fell into an inescapable psychological spiral. Even with a solid foundation and unwavering family support, Steve could not avoid the dark side that many generations of artists have faced: addiction and a crisis of identity. At the age of 14, Steve started drinking, with his first time being when he finished an entire bottle of Jack Daniels until he passed out, a moment he later called the first real slip in his life. This event was not only a warning for himself, but also a sign that Steve had already begun to lose control. As he got older, Steve became addicted to cocaine. This habit led him to lose his clarity, pulling him further away from the values of family and art. Steve once described, "After losing my job with the band, I was homeless, searching through trash bins for food at the studio. At that point, I only had 3 choices left: death, prison, or a mental hospital." The period of deep addiction also marked a significant disruption in Steve's music career. He was no longer trusted with major projects, was excluded from many bands he'd been part of, and gradually lost valuable connections in the international rock scene. Leaving Crowbar, a band that had brought him many achievements, was the clearest evidence of the consequences of losing self-control. At that time, Steve almost completely disappeared from major events, no longer appeared with his family, and cut off all contact with the media and friends. Mental instability and growing loneliness intensified as past wounds and current pressures overlapped. Steve fell into prolonged depression, at times facing thoughts of ending his own life to escape the cycle of addiction and failure. He entered rehab centers many times, but did not succeed immediately. It took Steve many years going through numerous treatments and personal crises before he found the first glimmer of hope. In an episode of the podcast Addiction Talks, Steve candidly admitted, "I lost everything, but I found my way back." The death of Andy Gibb, his uncle, also due to cocaine addiction, along with Morris's past struggles with alcohol and his passing from heart failure, added more psychological weight to Steve. A family history full of turmoil, addiction, and witnessing loved ones pass away too soon made it even easier for Steve to fall into. Despair. All of this left him feeling that his own fate would end up like those before him unless he made a decisive change. Steve's journey to recovery was not just a personal battle, but also a reflection of the darkness that had overshadowed the entire Bee Gees family. By daring to speak openly about his painful experiences and facing every psychological challenge head-on, Steve helped free an entire generation from the burden of inherited pain, a confession that exposes the truth. After years of battling addiction and depression, Steve Gibb entered a new chapter facing the past, rebuilding his career and taking the initiative to confirm every hidden corner that the public once speculated about. Steve achieved sobriety after many relapses and setbacks. His greatest motivation came from love for his family, especially his wife and 2 children. Alongside this, the unwavering support from his parents, especially Barry Gibb, played a decisive role in helping him emerge from the darkness. Steve once shared on the Addiction Talks podcast, "I want to help others avoid the mistakes I made." This deep empathy inspired Steve to found Addiction Talks, a podcast dedicated to sharing recovery experiences and supporting people in similar situations around the world. International media have recognized this as a genuine step, transforming personal pain into a driving force for social change. Steve's music career has also gradually recovered. He returned to the stage as lead guitarist in Barry Gibb's band, taking part in the 2013 Mythology Tour, a milestone that proved the true reunion of father and son, both as family and as artists. Steve continued to co-write the album in the now 2016 with Barry and his brother Ashley, contributing to the family's major projects. Media outlets such as Hollywood Life have highlighted Steve as a musician just like his father, while affirming that his current achievements are the result of personal resolve, not simply the product of a famous legacy. One of Steve's most important admissions has been publicly sharing his history of addiction, homelessness, and the depths of despair he once endured. He stated in the Daily Mail, "The first time I drank alcohol, I was 14 and finished a whole bottle of Jack Daniels, then passed out." These revelations not only confirm long-circulated rumors, but also underscore his determination to live truthfully, refusing to hide or deny anything about his own darkness. There have been many rumors regarding wealth and internal conflicts within the Bee Gees family. Still, Steve has repeatedly affirmed that he built his own career, did not rely on his father, and that there has been no inheritance dispute or public discord. This is clearly demonstrated through his individual music projects, community activities, and the effort to overcome challenges through his own inner strength. Online communities and the press, including Daily Mail and Bee Gees Days, have consistently praised Steve as a model of recovery, a representative of a generation of artists unafraid to speak the truth about the past. Willing to stand up and confirm everything that once was labeled as a stain, Steve's journey has become a source of inspiration for those who have struggled with addiction, mental crisis, and the pressures of fame. No longer living in Barry Gibb's shadow, Steve has validated every rumor with truth and transformed suffering into a foundation for a new legacy, a legacy of courage and honesty. This story also offers a new perspective on the Bee Gees family beyond all the glory. It is truth and the will to rise above darkness that make a name truly immortal. Right now, Steve Gibb continues to walk alongside his father in music and inspires others through community projects, proving that the Bee Gees' legacy is not only in timeless hits, but also in the spiritual strength of those who dare to face the truth. Steve's journey of affirmation is a crucial conclusion, closing old rumors and opening a new chapter for the family legacy. If the journey of Barry Gibb and Steve Gibb has changed your perspective on the truth behind the spotlight, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to keep up with more untold stories. The next story may be something you never expected.